Welcome to the Forces Sports Show, your weekly roundup of the best action and biggest stories from across the services. Coming up in the next half hour. Gold Rush. Army captain Jen Keogh makes history at the World Championships. Reds roar. The Army hand out a lesson for the students of Oxford University. Celebrating silverware, the Royal Marines are the toast of Royal Navy Rugby. We start with another golden week for Army captain ski guide Jen Keogh and her partner Menna Fitzpatrick. They've made history at the World Para-Alpine Championships by becoming the first British skiers to hold Paralympic and world titles at the same time. The pair took gold in the visually impaired downhill and Super G events on the slopes of Sella Nevea in Italy, and also added a silver medal in the Super Combined. In the first stage of the championships, which took place in Slovenia a week earlier, they claimed silver in the slalom and a bronze in the giant slalom. The pair won 4 medals at the Winter Paralympics in South Korea last year, including the gold in the slalom. The downhill also brought a first medal of the championships for the other British pair of Kelly Gallagher and her guide RAF Corporal Gary Smith. They took the silver after all the other competitors had failed to finish. Keogh and Fitzpatrick were at the bottom of the slope to cheer them on as well. Gallagher and Smith also went on to win bronze in the Super G and Super Combined events. To rugby, and the Army have made a winning start on the road to Twickenham. Cold conditions made their first warm-up game for the inter-services a tricky encounter, but they came through to beat the students of Oxford University. Julian Evans was there.
With the Blues of the Royal Navy and RAF to come later in the year, the Army kicked off their season against the Dark Blues of Oxford University. Come the Inter-Services Championship, they'll be hoping to have removed the faults from their game that led to Oxford's opening try. A misplaced clearance kick fell into the clutches of the visitors, and Tom Stileman barged over in the corner for an unconverted score. The military men wasted little time before hitting back. Having punched their way upfield, they broke through the Oxford defence, and Veliki Japani scrambled in for an unconverted try and levelled the scores. Within 2 minutes, the Army had doubled their account. Running from deep, the burly Boganasoko made good ground, making valuable metres before he was stopped in his tracks. Several phases later, the ball made its way to the other wing. An injection of pace from skipper Jamie Miller ended with Remy man Bani Valumalali Danoni squeezing home for a 10-5 half-time lead. Competition for places in this season's Army Inter-Services squad will be fierce, and players were keen to put in a positive display. Boganasoko kick-started another home-side attack in the second half, but on a bitterly cold night, when hands couldn't quite operate as well as they should, the move petered out. The Army did make the most of being deep in Oxford territory, however. Despite the ball being fumbled once more, there wasn't a knock-on, and Big Joe Visse went over for a converted try and extended the lead to 17 points to 5. The teams continued to tussle it out before a fourth Army try put the result beyond doubt. This one was all about collective brute strength, and the Forces side wrestled their way over for an unconverted effort. Ross Parkins, the man, awarded the points. The men in red did concede late on though as Oxford rallied. Sebastian Haddock skated in at the corner before placing the ball down for an unconverted try, leaving the Army winners 22 points to 10.
Hugely pleased with the performance, to be honest. This is the first, as you say, first game of the campaign. We've not been together very long, literally 2 days, so I thought we showed a huge amount of potential, and the work rate's there, the ethics there, so the rest of it will come in time.
One or two old faces, but it's the new faces that you'll have been delighted with. They look like they'd been part of the Army setup for a number of years.
Absolutely, and I think that's the biggest takeaway from tonight is that the amount we've managed to bond over 2 days is pretty impressive. So give us a few months, I think we'll be a side to be reckoned with.
And of course you've got another mouth-watering fixture coming up in a few days' time, and that's against the French Army. So a few of those players tonight looking to come out and do the similar effect over the French.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a pleasure to play the French and take it to them, and it'll be nice to do it here on our own turf. Obviously, we went there last year and stuck it to them there. So yeah, we'll be looking to do the same here next week.
Great. result for you tonight, but lots of faces yet to come back. It shows that there is competition for places in this Army setup.
There's always huge competition to play for this shirt, and that's one of the great things about this competition, the setup we've got here, is that there's no sure things. You know, everyone's got to work and play for the shirt, and I think, you know, no different this year.
The Royal Marines have been crowned Naval Inter-Command Rugby Champions for 2019. They beat Eastern Command in the final of the Inverdale Cup in Portsmouth. The Royal Marines took just over a minute to make their position clear in this Inverdale Cup final, a trophy donated by Surgeon Captain John Inverdale. They were out of the traps like greyhounds, Gerard Hayler's speed too much for Eastern's defence, and Mitch Bennett sprinting his way to the line and under the posts, Cads Caddywood adding the extra 2 points. Marines captain Mo Morris felt his players were unlucky not to make last year's final, and in his last match as captain on his 37th birthday, he led from the front as the Bootnecks grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck. A Caddywood penalty extended the advantage, before Easts enjoyed their first real period of sustained pressure in the game, and they got on the scoreboard with a Hall penalty. But that only spurred on the Marines. Their second try, a superb surging run from Troy Groby, before a move which summed up the Royal Marines' overall performance. Fullback Dunks Duncan scything his way through the opposition, offloading to Kip Bridgen. Hayler then coming close to the line. A fantastic touch from Caddywood, and Morris there to finish. Defence to devastating attack in next to no time. Caddywood added another penalty on half-time to make it 25-3 at the break. More relentless pressure from the Marines in the second half, but East Command held fast. They finally yielded a third try to fullback Duncan as the Marines extended their lead 32-3 with the conversion. Food for thought for Navy head coach Dave Pascoe as he ponders his inter-services squad. But all credit to East, they got a deserved try in their best period of pressure. Shires eventually breaching the Marines' line and Hall adding the conversion for 32-10. But the Bootnecks would have the last say almost immediately, and in similar fashion to the previous score, Duncan driving for the line before Nick Burgess got the final score, Caddywood adding the conversion for 39-10. The Marines worthy winners of a very entertaining cup final, Surgeon Captain Inverdale's daughter Jendi Weeks presenting the trophy to victorious Captain Morris.
Couldn't be much more prouder than the boys today. We didn't make the final last year, and it was a bittersweet for us. This year we've assembled a squad of players. It's been the backbone of the core team. We've had consistency throughout, and to lead these boys out today to victory, I couldn't have been prouder for my final game as skipper.
You know, you're on fire for so many front minutes in that game tonight.
Yeah, we had complete faith in our backline. Backline is electric, and it's been like that most of the season, enough for anyone to contend with. And we've been working on our offence, and it paid dividends today. And East couldn't live with us, so we're more than happy with the lads.
It was terrific. There was some great handling, one or two really outstanding individual performances as well. And East, you know, when they were down 25-3, I think it was at half time, and they could have buckled, but I think it was 14-7. I think the second half was, and it was a much more even game. And, you know, the odd moment here and there, you know, refereeing decisions and the game swings. So really enjoyed it. Really, really good match.
Now, military involvement in the Six Nations isn't just confined to the Force's elite players in the international squads. Army nurse Nikki O'Donnell combines her day job at the new Defence Medical Rehabilitation Centre at Stamford Hall with that of a top rugby referee. Gillian Evans went to meet her.
Army nurse Nikki O'Donnell has enjoyed a rapid rise in the refereeing ranks. In the past few months, she's taken charge of her first international as Wales played South Africa and presided over the women's varsity match at Twickenham. Nikki has managed to balance her role as a top referee alongside the demands as a military nurse. Does she find there's any crossover between the two? Has there been the need to brandish a red card to an unruly patient?
No, but there's a lot of transferable skills, things that I can take from my nursing into rugby, and similarly some of the skills that you have communication-wise on the pitch and organisation, and that multitasking from work does transition very well across when you're looking at a breakdown and have lots of things going on at once.
Although no stranger to officiating on the big stage, Nikki was delighted to have impressed the Rugby Football Union referee panel when they appointed her as a match official for her first Women's Six Nations Championship.
Getting the game in the autumn in the November internationals, I was not expecting that. I felt the game went quite well, my review went well, and I thought I may have a chance. I didn't expect a phone call to say I was going to have a Six Nations game, so I was very pleased.
Officials, like athletes, want to feature at the highest level, and Nikki has set her sights on being out in the middle on the biggest stage of all.
Ideally, I would love to say I could go to the World Cup. I'll have to wait and see how performances go. There's a lot of competition in the RFU, some of the referees coming through. There's other referees across Europe and across the world that are now pushing boundaries. There's a huge amount of support for women's rugby, which is great. Militarily, I got an email to say that I will be going to the IDRC, so the International Defence Rugby Cup, as the representative from the UK Armed Forces in, when's that, August, September time this year. So that's something to look forward to militarily.
As a top-flight referee and proud member of the Queen Alexandra's Royal Army Nursing Corps, what has helped Nikki deal with the high-pressure situations she's faced on the pitch and on the ward?
I think the biggest thing is smile. Take a breath, smile, because if you're presenting a calm exterior, it gives you the chance on the inside to just process things and work out what's going on.
Nikki takes charge of her first Women's Six Nations match in Glasgow as Scotland play Italy.
On now to boxing, and Lance Corporal Ches Nihel is to make his professional debut on one of London's biggest stages. He'll fight on the undercard at the O2 Arena before the main bout between James DeGale and Chris Eubank Jr. Nihel, who's been the talisman of Army boxing for many years, won the English Amateur Heavyweight title in 2018 and was also named the Army's Sportsman of the Year. The RAF have staged their cross-country championships at RAF Halton, with more than 120 runners competing in senior men's and women's, juniors and veterans races. The fastest man was SAC Michael Callenberg, who reversed the placings of a fortnight ago at the Sir Sefton Branco race by coming ahead of Wing Commander Ben Livesey in a time of 31 minutes 24 seconds for the 6-mile race. Fastest woman on the course was Flight Lieutenant Tamsin Rutter, who beat SAC Emily Hutchinson. The fastest under-23 runner was SAC Will Gardner.
There's nothing majorly different today. It's quite close between us, always has been, and you can flip a coin and it's heads or tails who's going to win. So yeah, one apiece. So inter-services will be good. The main thing is hopefully we'll drag each other around and get some good team results.
I'm really delighted. We've got all our top runners out, bar one who's injured. He will be off for long-term sick anyway. So really delighted with the team today, and they put in an excellent performance and some really good competition. We've got our best runners out, so it's looking really, really positive for inter-services. My dream team is pretty much out there, so I'm very happy.
At the Army Cross Country Championships, Minley Corporal Danny Hodgkinson took the women's title ahead of Captain Lauren Hall. The senior men's title went to Captain Ed Knudsen. There's no doubt that international events like the Warrior and Invictus Games have raised the profile of disability sport in the military. And now a station in Cambridgeshire can claim to have the first ever adaptive sports club in the Royal Air Force. Kath Brazier went to meet the club's founder and members at RAF Whitton.
The Paralympic movement is alive and well at this RAF base, where sports like sitting volleyball have become commonplace. An injury he picked up in 2015 means Pete Lauder has no cartilage in his left hip. So after competing at the Warrior Games in 2017, the RAF Sergeant started up an adaptive sports club, the first of its kind in the armed forces.
It was identified, there was quite a few of us with injuries, and it was like, what could we do to maintain fitness, train for these type of events? So I came up with the idea of creating the first effectively RAF adaptive sports club, and from there we've now got up to 12 members, not only serving but veterans, some civilians in the sort of local area as well.
Whether it's a team session or you just find 5 minutes between work meetings, the station and the local community have embraced the idea.
I mean, I was surprised that we were the first, if I'm truly honest, because, you know, it's kind of, as I say, it's a no-brainer because it's really not difficult to achieve. It's really been pushed through by Pete, who obviously is so vested in it and he's so passionate about it, which is great. So from my perspective, it was a very simple decision.
And it hasn't taken much adjustment.
From the facilities, it's just a normal gymnasium. Thankfully, we've got some pieces of kit that's been loaned to us from Health for Heroes, our local recovery centre. But majority of the time, like the volleyball, we're using badminton nets and the badminton poles and the volleyball. You just need a gym floor to do sitting volleyball. We've got rowers. If you can get an adaptive seat, but you can still do rowing. A local swimming pool has offered and said, you know, we might be able to use a session once a week, potentially to do training for swimming. As you see, we've got archery, small archery range here. So yeah, it's just really, as long as you've got a gym floor, a couple of pieces of equipment, it doesn't matter if you don't have the wheelchairs, that you can still do some of these sports that we're doing at the moment.
Pete and his teammates are given adapted workout programmes from the station's physio. The club has also helped rehab patients have a focus for their recovery.
Gets the guys really energised about the training, so we can give them some strength and conditioning programmes and exercises to do, and they really buy into it and have a reason for doing it, where sometimes rehab does get a little bit boring, so I think it just adds that little bit of extra impetus for them. If they've got an injury, doesn't mean they still can't train like athletes, so we can give them normal strength and conditioning programmes with that little added twist to take into account their injury.
Dane was involved in a motorcycle accident 3.5 years ago, which left him with lower limb injuries. His sport was initially archery, but this club has given him many other opportunities.
Well, I found that I still missed something, so doing CT volleyball meant that you sort of gain that thing that you lose when you're playing football or rugby and with the lads out on the field. You lose that when you've got a permanent injury. You sort of lose that camaraderie that you gain through team sports.
Support like what they receive from the RAF Benevolent Fund is crucial because at the moment adaptive sports aren't formally recognised within the military. But the long-term hope is that clubs like this become the norm, not just across the Air Force but across the armed forces as a whole.
And that's it for this week. Don't forget you can see all the action as we get it on forces.net and this show and more on YouTube. We'll leave you with the first round action from all three services in the Rugby League Challenge Cup. The RAF got through against North Herts to set up a second round tie at Distington, but it was defeat for the Navy and Army against West Hull and Bentley.